Scare Package is a brand new Shudder original anthology, low budget horror comedy, much more comedy than horror. And this film is very meta and very silly. It is very goofy, very silly, and I don't give a shit. I was a giant fan of this. I had a fucking blast. Whoever made this movie just loves movies. You can just tell. You can just tell because it's the main kind of like wraparound story, so to speak, is guys who work at a video store, and there's so many references to so many things throughout this. Lots of references to horror movies, of course, to all sorts of films. Lots of Game of Thrones talks. Just lots of film love all over the place. Now the segments, they vary for sure. Some of them are, fine, and I was like chuckling a little bit throughout. And then there's other ones that I just thought were so funny, and I was having such a great time. Some of the humor in this really, really landed for me, and I always been interested. And there's a decent amount of really good practical gore in this, and really gross stuff at times too. But mostly all of it is for comedic gags. There's one in particular, I'd have to say my favorite segment in this has to do with a guy who comes upon some campers, and he tells them that they need to stop him because he's about to change. That's all I'm going to say on it, but it is disgusting and absolutely fucking hilarious. That whole segment for me was just like laugh out loud funny. There's a couple segments that I was kind of like, yeah, that was fine. That was a good one. Like, I liked it. There was nothing I didn't like in the segments. There was none of them that I was like, I could have done without that one. Every one of them had something to offer. So if you're into pretty low budget, super fun, very self-aware, extremely meta at times. Like, it kind of plays itself off like, what was that movie? You Might Be the Killer, something like that, where a lot of the characters are very aware that they're in a horror movie. That kind of stuff. You got a very giant, very, very big cameo by Joe Bob Briggs in here, who I really honestly don't know a whole lot about. I've really never honestly watched any of Joe Bob Briggs. I know that there are some people that are just diehard Joe Bob fans. It's just not something I ever did. He's like the male Elvira, right? And I'm of course gonna more gravitate towards the big tits and all that stuff. So I'm sure I'd enjoy it if I watched it, but I never have. I've never watched like a second of Joe Bob. Isn't that crazy? It's just not something that ever crossed my path when I was growing up, and some people just absolutely adore it. I do remember stuff like USA Up All Night with like Gilbert Godfrey and stuff. That I watched the fucking stuff. I watched the shit out of that kind of stuff. But Joe Bob just completely passed me by. I barely watched any Elvira either. It's just not something, I don't know. For me, I don't really need a host to talk to me about movies and like interrupt. And I remember when I was watching Ed Wood, fantastic film by Tim Burton that rarely ever gets talked about. Might be my favorite Tim Burton film. Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood are sitting down, and they're watching Vampira, who sued Elvira later on for stealing her act. And he's sitting there and he's trying to watch his movie, White Zombie, and she comes on the screen, and he's like, I hate when she interrupts the movies. And I'm like, dude, if that's how that shit is, no. I don't want anyone interrupting my movie. Even if she's as gorgeous as Vampire or Elvira or anything, I'd be like, Now, maybe if it's a movie I've seen 100 times, it'd be kind of fun. But like first time viewing, because they did do a Joe Bob's version of this where he was like talking. Now, I don't know if he interrupts the movies or not, but regardless, that just doesn't sound like a great time to me. But this movie, on the other hand, was a fucking great time to me. And I hope that any ultra low budget horror comedy anthology fans who like super self-aware, silly ass humor and gross out gag gore effects, practical, this is such a fun flick. This is one of my favorite films, one of my favorite horror movies, one of my favorite horror comedies. of the year for sure. For sure. There's been a decent amount of good stuff. And there's a lot more coming out this week that I'm really, really looking forward to. Something that was released yesterday, but it's only on DirecTV, motherfuckers, man. I'm so sick of that shit. I hate DirecTV so much. They did that with Mr. Mercedes, and they did that with some of these movies. And I was just like, really, man? You got to do that shit to me? It's so lame. Like, let me see this. It's called Ghosts of War. It's something that I'm looking forward to, but now I can't watch. It's got like Billy Zane. It's got freaking dude from one of the dudes from Sons of Anarchy, and the dude who plays Dick Grayson in the Titans show on DC Universe, and it just looks, it looks promising. And I'm like, I want to watch this fucking show, but it's only on DirecTV. It's so annoying. But yeah, please check this out. The cover art. Oh, the cover art's so badass. Very reminiscent of the House cover art from, with the hand that's like ringing the doorbell, ding dong, you're dead, and the peace sign on House 2, second story, and all that. Like, it very, very reminiscent of that. It's like pulling out a VHS. I'm sure I'll use it as the background here, but super cool cover art. Obviously a bunch of people who just absolutely love horror and wanted to have a great time. A lot of, there's a good amount of babes in this movie. I don't think there's no nudity. But I never even noticed, to be completely honest. It's not calling for it anywhere in the movie. But yeah, it really does deliver on the laughs. It really does deliver on the inventiveness too. I think that's another thing I wanted to mention really quick, is like some of the gags in this. Like, one of them is these guys that capture a killer, and they're like trying every way they can to kill them. Now, that's not the most original idea ever. We have seen that before, but it still feels fresh. It still feels fun. And that whole segment's actually pretty funny. Just pretty funny how everything keeps going down. It's like one of those roll your eyes, like, oh shit, here we go again kind of moments. But it still gets a laugh out of me. But hands down for me, the best segment is the campers, hikers in the woods, and they meet the guy and he's changing. That shit was hilarious, man. It's so gross and just so awesome. And I really, really, I hope people are checking this one out. I hope this one doesn't pass people by, because it's such a fun flick. It's such a fun flick. Not gonna be for everybody. There's gonna be some people watch this and they're like, this is the dumbest shit ever. And that's what's tough about comedy. That's what's tough about comedy horror. That's what's tough about comedy in general. Is like, or movies in general, or anything artistic. It's like, some audience is gonna just get it, and I got it for sure. Like, I'm totally the target audience with this particular movie. A lot of great characters, a lot of one-liners, a lot of memorable, quotable things. This is a movie I could watch multiple times and quote some lines from for sure. So, good time. Definitely watch it. A fuck ton better than that stupid-ass Kevin Bacon movie. You should have left. You should have left the fucking theater, is going to be the big joke, although there is no theater to leave. But you should have left the movie from being rented for $20. This is on Shudder, man. Shudder's $5 a month, and they've released a ton of stuff lately, and this is absolutely worth a $5 rental. So if you don't even have Shudder and you have to pick up Shudder to watch this, and it costs you $5 to get Shudder for the month, it's 100% worth the $5. So a $5 rental for sure. Do it. All right, adios.